Before we get started today's podcast, I'm excited to share with you that the Confident and Consistent Leader Challenge is back. We launch our next group on September 6th. In June, we had 11 leaders go through it, and the feedback was fantastic. Brad, who's a wealth manager, said the challenge was extremely helpful and relevant to not only his business, but as a father and a husband. Stephen, who's a COO, said his wife was sad the challenge was over because she felt the difference it made in his life. Yes, I know it is only 30 days, but with daily emails and videos sprinkled throughout the 30 days, it is high intentionality. We have accountability through the different live group coaching calls. Change is possible. Whether you want to grow personally, and that may be getting back to the gym, growing spiritually, growing in your marriage, or it's professionally. You want to identify the vision and values for your company. You want to improve culture. Whatever it may be, we will identify those at the beginning of the challenge, and then through a bunch of different exercises and activity, you will in fact see growth on the other side. Visit CoreyMCarlson.com/leadership to learn more as well as register. And we will get started on September 6th. And I am so excited to see this next group of leaders grow. Thank you very much. And on to today's podcast. Welcome to the Win at Home First podcast. I'm your host, Corey Carlson. This podcast is where we talk about how successful business leaders win, not only at work, but also at home. On this podcast, we'll go behind the scenes with great leaders to hear stories of how they win. Thank you for listening, and on to today's episode. Hello, today's episode with Marshall Hyzdu is very applicable whether you lead in corporate America or in the education system. Marshall Hyzdu is president of Moeller High School, which is an elite high school here in the Cincinnati metropolitan area. But the tips he shares and just his story is so applicable to all of us. When we talk about the importance of communication and setting expectations with your spouse, with your family, for Marshall, being president of a school, he's got the busy school year, but he also has summer. He's got different sporting events he's got to attend. So as he communicates, it sets expectations, much what we can all do in our own families. So great discussion there. He talks about his change from going from a high corporate role in marketing to being president of Moeller, and how he went through identity and image and all these different pieces that we all have to work through when we make big change. So Marshall shares things that are helpful to all of us. He talks about the importance of investing in other people and making sure you surround yourself with a powerful who. And then him and his team have done a great job putting together their vision and values. They make them simple, they make them memorable, which all of us, whether we're leading our families or our teams at work, need to have vision and values that everyone can rally around. This episode is great. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. On to today's episode. Hello, this is Corey Carlson. You're listening to Win at Home First podcast. Today, I'm joined by Marshall Hyzdu, who is president of Moeller High School, one of the premier high schools in the Cincinnati metropolitan area, a private boys' school. And he left a successful corporate career to lead this school, which is amazing in itself. He's a father of 3 boys, been married for 10 years. So he's winning at work, winning at home. And I was excited to invite Marshall on today to learn, how is he doing it? And so Marshall, thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Corey. It's honestly a treat to be here and to be part of your incredible podcast. So thank you, man.
Marshall, what is the key trait for leaders to win both at work and at home?
I believe it's a desire to win at everything that you do. And maybe it's the Enneagram 3 in me, but I think that there's an opportunity and I believe you can win at everything that you do. And so whether it's having goals at work and goals at family and goals spiritually, I always think about Colossians 3:23, which is, I'm going to paraphrase it, but whatever you do, work at it with all your heart and working for God. And so I think if I'm at home, if I'm at work, if I'm by myself praying, that's a characteristic that I think is really how to win it.
I love that desire to win. Then you went on to talk about different goals. How do you have goals spiritually?
spiritual goals are really tough. I mean, you can either be as simplistic as possible and say, hey, I'm pursuing God and Jesus in everything that I do. And that's probably the answer. But there are seasons where I go up and down spiritually. When things are going well, I'm praying and I'm feeling close. And when I'm not, I feel like I'm standing still. The old adage, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward.
Goals at work, we usually sit down with our team, we strategize, we think through, hey, what are the goals for this year? And so every company, every school has a method of doing that. How do you do that for your home?
Sarah and I, every year, and actually every couple months, we will go out on a date night and we'll just spend some time just, reviewing what we want out of our family. And, sometimes when we get off center, we'll come back and we'll say, hey, what's working, what's not working. And, this week is the first day of school. And so we're going back. And for my job of working at Moeller High School, the fall gets crazy. And I mean a good crazy. And so Sarah and I really kind of sit down and say, okay, how many nights a week is our goal for you to be home for dinner? Perfect. Or how many times in the month are we going to do a personal date? How many times are you going to take the boys out for a one-on-one timing? And, then we try to hold each other accountable for it. But it's the home goals are certainly harder to track and sometimes fall away from the work goals, but obviously are even more important than what we're trying to achieve at school.
I think what's so important about what you said there was communication, and it's seasonal. So your example of the kind of the Moeller year, it's fall's jam-packed with all the different sports, and that has a heavy load on you, I'm sure. As a president, you probably got to attend a bunch of soccer games, football games, volleyball games, and then it shifts into basketball in the winter. And I think that's true of all leaders listening, that work is seasonal. One quarter may be busier than another quarter for someone. If you're in construction, summer's jam-packed compared to a winter. I mean, it gives and takes, but some people just kind of treat every day as the same. And so for you, it sounds like you guys are breaking it down, if not quarterly, maybe all the way down to monthly.
We have to. I mean, because our season changes so often, and it is a big roller coaster. But even in the corporate world, no matter what company I was at, there were seasons where it was budgeting season and it was delivering the numbers. It was the end of the quarter. There's always those ebbs and flows, at least in my experience out there as well.
And communication is such a big piece, is expectations. I mean, when we don't communicate, it's our wives just think we'll be around a lot more. But if we tell them, hey, I'm only going to be around for one family dinner this week, just due to the demands this week, man, it's amazing how much easier the relationship is.
Corey, you nailed it. I mean, communication is so key. And it's amazing because in my head, I will think that I am really investing in her, really investing in the boys. Man, it is so much better than it's ever been. In the reality, in her mind, when we're not communicating, that is not her reality. And so just that setting expectations, that communication, following up, and then really kind of delivering on what I said I was going to do. And if I said I'm going to be home at 6:15, if I show up at 6:20, I'm not honoring her as my wife and as the mother of our children. So it is so critical for the success of when at home.
And Jesus said, make your yes be yes, your no be no. And how true is that in our marriages, where if we say 6:15, be 6:15? Because once you allow that to start to drift, there goes trust.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Marshall, you made a comment about your corporate career, and I want to press into that a little bit because I think the transition from corporate to going to Moeller, I think in itself had to be an extreme sacrifice. You were global marketing director for Valvoline. Then you shifted into VP of marketing for Bridgestone. So two very powerful companies, great leadership roles, but yet you left those to pursue leading your alma mater. I am sure that was not an easy decision and probably didn't happen over a week's time. So how did that transition take place? Can you walk us through that, as I know many listeners are contemplating their own career decisions?
It's really interesting. So we were down in Nashville and working at Bridgestone at the VP of marketing level, which was always my goal, is to get to that level and then just to kind of breathe and see where my career went at that point. But everything kind of led up to that point. And, Bridgestone is an incredible company, but I got a call in that summertime from the chairman of Moeller's board, Mark Rippey, and he said, Marshall, we're looking for a new president. Do you know of anybody? And so I gave him a couple of names, and he called the names, and it didn't work out. And he called me back and said, Marshall, what about you? And, I said, Mark, what about me? And he said, I want you to consider doing this job. And I gave him like 15 reasons why it didn't make sense. I'm finally at the level I want. I'm making the money that I want. Nashville's incredible. Our family's starting to build roots here. And he said, just think about it. And Corey, we found an incredible church down in Nashville, South Point. And, as crazy as things were in Nashville and at Bridgestone, we went to church and there was a sermon on the illusion of money. The illusion of money. And what he talked about was that when you're at a certain level and you said, you know what, if I just made $10,000 more, then I could buy X. And then you make that $10,000 more. And he said, if I made just another 10, then I could buy a Y. And then you get to that level and it just keeps going and going and going. And when he's talking, it was literally like he was sitting next to Sarah and I, because we look at each other. We have this potential opportunity at Moeller High School. The major drawback was financial. And we said, what are we doing? Like, this is a dream job. Moeller High School means so much to me because of what it did for me and my brothers. And it's just truly a special place. And we jumped in. And I was looking at even a quote on Opportunity Knocks this morning. And there's a quote about, opportunity knocks. And sometimes you have to walk through that, not knowing if it's a perfect decision or not. But this one was. And for Sarah and I to move back to Cincinnati, to be near family and to really be at a dream job, it felt like it was a holy nudge, man. Being down there, corporate life, everything was going great. And there was a Holy Spirit nudge that just said, hey, why don't you consider this? And, it's one of the 3 best decisions of my life, besides going to Moeller High School when I was a student and asking Sarah to marry me. I put it up there in the top 3 best decisions. So it's been a true blessing to be back here, man.
How long from that moment that Mark, the chairman, said, how about you, to you saying yes?
I think it was October or November of that year. And we just moved. So just a few weeks was the time period. Tough decision, but truly a blessing. Besides
money and the pay cut you had to take, what other head trash were you wrestling with to take the job?
My whole image, right? Like I since I was 16 years old, I'd been laying out a plan of how to meet my wife and how to raise the family that I wanted to raise. And so every decision I made from 16 until in my 30s was all leading up to that. And my whole image was, I'm a vice president and I'm working at the largest tire company in the entire world. And to walk away from my worldly image of who I thought I was hard. That's kind of the mind trap that I find myself into sometimes, and not realizing my real worth, which is how God sees me.
And it's no small issue in the standpoint. I've been there from identity being tied to being a corporate exec. And then the idea of pursuing coaching in this whole business, it's I'm not enough, or I can't do this. How did you think about the standpoint of that you aren't enough, or you are enough to lead a school? You had not led a school. You'd not stepped in the education space. Even before talk, you invited me in to talk to the leadership team, which I'm grateful for. But even in that conversation, it was, hey, it's business and school. Just let's talk about that for a little bit. So you had to walk through that as well.
Yeah, honestly, Corey, I still don't think that I'm worthy enough or good enough to be here. What I've always done is to rely on the people around me. And there's so many amazing people that work here and have been working here. I mean, there's 23 people that were at Moeller when I graduated, as when I came back 6 years ago. And, people like Carl Kramer and Mary Fisher and just the incredible leadership team that we have, as well as the board. I mentioned Mark Rippey and our current board chair, Kirk Current, and just so many mentors to help us through this process. And I will tell you, I make mistakes every single day here, and but we're running downhill, and we're trying to run as fast as we can without falling down. And we've had some good success, but it's we got a long way to go. So it's been a lot of fun.
When you're going after big things as well. I mean, you just helped lead the whole team through the largest Moeller fundraiser ever, and during 2020. So during COVID. So how was it leading the team through that during such a trying year, even from an education standpoint of mask and COVID and testing and quarantines, all those different pieces, plus that extra layer of stress onto the team of, hey, we need to go continue to raise money for some of the goals we want to go after?
Yeah, and it's two things. One is, how do we educate these young men? Like how do we deliver our mission of being Catholic and Marianist and forming our students into remarkable men while they're wearing masks? And so we committed to being 5 days a week, and our teachers crushed it. I mean, crushed it. And I will tell you, that first day of in-service when our teachers came back, and this was August of last year, people were freaked out. And rightfully so, because we didn't know what COVID was. Like, it was a scary time. And our teachers stepped up and just nailed it. Our students, I always get a kick out of this, but we were so worried because we're dealing with teenage young men. We were so worried about them wearing masks. I'm telling you, they were better at wearing masks, better than the adults were. It was because they wanted to be at school. And then raising money, this was the thing that was truly shocking to me, is just and how humbling it was on our alums, our past parents, our current parents, and how generous they were to help support our campaign. And so it was $14 million, and we just announced that we raised over $22 million. Yeah, humbled and being fired up and excited. And I mean, there's just several words that describe it. But, it's just the leadership of like Mary Fisher internally leading that piece of it was just awesome. So, and then we've also been doing construction, Corey. So, at the beginning of COVID, we had a choice. We could say, hey, listen, we're going to buckle down and we're going to stop construction because we don't know where the future's going. And one of the things that I learned coming from Kraft Foods is that when you go into a recession, everyone takes all their chips off the table and kind of holds it close. But the companies that really excel are the ones that not only keep the chips on the table, but actually push it all in and say, you know what, we are going to invest as everyone else is pulling back. And so Dave Beiersdorfer, who leads our facilities, and he's truly incredible, he said, hey, let's keep going on with our construction. And so we built a brand new band room and a choir room and a locker room, all during COVID when everybody else was shutting down. And we said, we're going for this. And we took a lot of heat, and rightfully so. A pandemic, 100-year pandemic, and you guys are building structures. Like, you got to be out of your mind. But we believed, and I'm so glad we did, because it set us up to where we can keep investing and delivering what we said we were going to do.
Yeah, those trying years, you either gain market share, gain ground, or you're giving it away to those who are aggressively going after it. So well done to lead the team that way. Marshall, how do you keep your head in the game? How do you elevate your mindset? Because not every day in 2020 was rosy. I mean, yes, we look on the hindsight and the kids were able to wear their mask and they were resilient. As you said, the teachers crushed it. Now we've got new facilities. But as you lead, and I myself, I've got my up days, my down days. What are you doing to elevate the mindset?
I always believe that things are going to work out, and just, don't want to call it hope, but just belief that God has a plan and that we're going to run as fast as we can towards our goals. And I had a football coach that said, Marshall, you got to be great at everything that you do. And when you're at school, be at school. When you are talking to young women, talk to young women. When you're hanging out with your buddies, hang out with your buddies. And when you're playing football, play football. And so when I'm at work, I am 100% here. And when I'm home, I want to be 100% there and spiritually be 100% there. And so I just think that as long as we are focused on where we're focused on going, and our mission is very clear of what we have, that helps you through those trying days, because there are, man. And I'm telling you, it is amazing how much stuff comes through a high school in a given year, and how many challenges that you deal with, because you're dealing with 875 young men and their parents and their grandparents and their challenges. But it is keeping a vision on the higher prize, man.
I think, obviously faith's a fantastic answer, as having that faith and having that mindset that God's going to provide, that the harvest is plentiful. And, as you mentioned, to continue to go after that prize. Is there anything that you find yourself doing, whether it's a particular prayer, particular verse that you go to, or kind of a mantra that has been helpful to you on those trying days?
So what I'm doing right now, Corey, is every year I try to take on a challenge. And this challenge was to read the Bible in a year. And so every single day during the week, I'm reading 2 Old Testament and 1 New Testament book. And for me, that has been incredibly beneficial, not only on the trying days, but the good days, et cetera. And it's really opened up my mind, because I knew that a lot of the stories and such, but to really have the whole thing congruent and pulling together, and it has opened my mind, and it makes different situations that I would normally approach from angle A to see B and C, because of the things that I'm reading, and it's just been really beneficial for me. So that doesn't answer your question exactly on those tough days, but that's one of the things that I've been focused on this year, and it's been really beneficial.
I can totally see that being applicable in the standpoint. I know in 2020, I really increased my reading because I needed to, because I needed the pick me up, and it worked. And it was amazing how a particular verse, a particular story showed up that day. It was, I needed to read it at just the right time. And I've continued on that, throughout this whole year, because I got so much out of it. What are you reading right now? Or what are some of the things that have stood out to you?
So right now I'm in Romans, and read Romans 5 this morning. And if you want to get knocked on your butt, read Romans, right? Paul does not, he does not mince words, and but it's incredible. There's a line about this whole thing about everything always works out. And it's Romans 8. We know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And so just, if you believe and pursue God, I truly believe that everything's going to work out.
I love that verse, because it's all things, not some things, not just the good things, but all things. And from a leadership perspective, I know that even in our home, we would talk about all the junk that was going on around us. But God somehow, some way is going to use all things for good. Back to your word of faith and hope, is we've got to have faith and hope that these things will be used for good. So we got to continue to move forward and not just, have a pity party, but to know that all things will be used for good, whether it's character, it's refining us, it's character building, or it's that divine delay where something better is coming.
Absolutely. And actually in Jeremiah, he talks about suffering leads to perseverance, which leads to character, which leads to hope.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah, that's good stuff. See, you do have those mindset things. And a lot of times just going to scripture. I know on my days where I go to scripture, like I can handle the waves that'll be thrown at me. But if the day I slept in or I didn't get scripture, man, I feel like I just get tossed around all day. So it's that intentionality of our quiet time sets us apart. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode. I hope you are enjoying it so far. Before we go back to the rest of this episode, I want to share with you my book, Win at Home First. Some of you have read it, so thank you very much. For others of you, you have not. And I encourage, if you're looking for a resource to help you with these times of your work is now in your home and your home is now in your work, and what this looks like, this book is being helpful to many leaders like you. Forbes magazine said it was one of 7 books everyone on your team should read. And the book is broken up into 4 different sections to help you. First is about you, understand who you are. The second is marriage and ideas and tips to help with your marriage. Third is parenting. And then last is work. So these 4 different sections to help you recalibrate during this time and to help move forward. So if you are needing additional resources, I encourage you to check out my book, Win at Home First. It is available on Amazon as well as Audible. And so on to the rest of the episode. Thank you very much. You mentioned you like to be present where you're at. How have you found yourself to be present at home with the demands of, work coming after you? And you do have an extra layer of stress because not only do you have students, but you got parents and grandparents. I heard you mention, my kids go to public schools, and I don't think we've got generational push and pressure on our students, but you're getting it, and pressure of the athletic director, or coaches or whatever it could be. So how do you at home guard that time?
When I'm doing it well, I am putting one-on-one time aside for Sarah. I'm putting one-on-one time aside for each of my boys. And I know I'm doing it well. I have 3 little boys, 7, 6, and 4, James, Teddy, and AJ. And I know you feel this as well, but there's a smile, there's a look, there's their body language that when they feel close to me and I'm investing in them, that they give back to me. And there's not a better feeling in the world. And I also see it with Sarah, right? When I am investing in her and doing things right, she'll smile at kind of the big dumb animal that I am.
You put your phone away, kind of phone in the cabinet or laptop away. Have you had to set up boundaries for yourself?
It is an opportunity for me to be better because the phone is the area where my mind wanders away from the boys, away from Sarah. And so that is a huge opportunity for me. Do you put it in a special place or how do you do it?
I get it out of my pocket and I put it on the counter and I put it basically kind of near our, call it, charging station, and I leave it there. Now, do I walk by and take a look at it? Yes, but I do not have it in my pocket because I don't want that distraction. And so I will put it over there. I also have it on vibrate only. And then I turn off all notifications. I mean, that's like one of the first things I tell any client or friend is, hey, turn off all the notifications. I don't need to have a buzzer to tell me the Reds just scored. I don't need my life adjusted because of something happened or breaking news or I just received an email. A lot of that stuff, I want to pull it as opposed to have it pushed. And so it's just that idea of that way I'm in control and someone else's emergency or urgency is not mine. So that's helped me tremendously.
That's awesome. Because the thing that I think about and that I feel guilt about is my boys are watching me, whether I know it or not. And with them being so young, I don't have to deal with issues with phone and technology quite yet. But my fear is that they are going to see me putting that as a priority versus my interaction with them. And so, I appreciate that push and that charge from you. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to do it because I also know that they're watching because my kids are older than yours. I've got 9, 13, and 17. And that idea of lead by example, I mean, that is so true in all areas of our life, especially our phone. And so if I'm going to tell my kids to be off their technology, I myself have to make sure I'm off my technology or at least have it controlled. It's that idea of, we're talking about different scriptures in 1 Peter, where Peter is saying that we need to basically have self-control and be sober-minded. And if I'm not executing with self-control or self-discipline, then, how can I ask my kids to do the same? Part of my story, Marshall, is the fact that I felt God saying to me, I need to hand over my story for a greater story. Did you find that in your life or in your career where there's this moment where, hey, I need to hand it all over. From now on, it's not the Marshall story. It's going to be something of a greater story.
Yeah. Corey, I mentioned the time when I made the choice to come back from Bridgestone to Moeller. But recently I've been spending a lot of time talking to Sarah and some people close to me and realizing that the incredible accomplishments that we've had, whether it's the dollars that we've raised or the buildings that we built or the academic programs or the people that we brought in, But it's really interesting. One of the things that I am working on right now is the investment in the incredible people that we have. And what that really is about turning it over. And it's not about the accomplishments that we talk about. It is really about investing in other people. And the idea of investing in other people so that they see themselves the way that God sees them. And realizing that the end goal of everything that we're charging towards, it all starts with people. And so, that's one of the things that I've been really focused on over the last several weeks is really trying to turn it over and realize that it's not about me. It's not about accomplishments. It's about God and God through other people.
You said the phrase turn it over a couple times. What does turn it over mean to you?
So recognizing that everything that I do, everything that we do is really about God and what his plan is. I don't accomplish anything unless it's through Jesus. There's nothing that Marshall Hyzdu has ever really accomplished in his life. The only accomplishments are what God has allowed for us to do. And so realizing that it's working as if everything is on me, but believing that everything is on God is what I mean by that. So I'm still going to bust my tail, but realizing that this is all God's glory.
A phrase I started saying in 2020 because I needed to hear it, and I think God gave it to me in a quiet time, and I continue to say it now, so you may have heard me say it, is I control the input, God controls the impact. And it's a lot what you're talking about, we just turn it over, which is a great kind of rally phrase as well, from the standpoint of we still have to show up. We still have to do the work, just like you mentioned. You still got to go ask everyone in the world for money to hit this fundraising goal. You still got to put pressure on the teachers in a good way to educate and have a first class educational program. But at the end of the day, how that all translates is God's got the impact of what that looks like.
100%. That's a great recap, Corey.
You mentioned having a great team. Thank you for having me, speak to your team. What I loved about how you lead, how your team leads, is we a lot of times talk about the importance of vision and values. There's a lot of companies that in school, it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But you guys, everyone knew what the vision statement was. Everyone knew what those 3 different values. I was the one that kept forgetting the different values that, I kept but I loved how you led with those and you kept coming back to that. Has that been something that's you guys have instated here in the recent years and you just keep going back to it? Has Moeller always been that way, or you found that we needed that common unity?
Corey, I have personally worked at 4 really big companies, and I'm sure that all 4 of those companies had mission statements and vision statements, and they went through the whole planning process, and they had a group of people and they wrote and they worked on each different word, and then they put that mission statement somewhere over there and they never looked at it again. And Moeller had a mission statement, and it was a typical 4-sentence mission statement that no one in the building knew what it was. And to me, what is the point? And so we got a cross-functional group of current students, alumni, parents, faculty, staff, board members, and we got together and we wrote those 8 words of being Catholic, Marianist, forming our students into remarkable men. And so every single time that I present, every time that I go here or there and we have it plastered all over the school, it's those 8 words. And if we ever get off mission, we know what the mission is. It's to be Catholic, it's to be Marianist, and it's about our students. And if there's anything that we do that is not about our students, it's off mission. And, Carl Kramer, our principal, and I, we met with all our faculty and staff, and we went through the mission again at our in-service. And we also went through our core values of build the family, hold the door, earn the shield. And the more those seep into our lexicon, the more people will internalize it and start to live it and breathe it. And if you get an opportunity, or I'm sure you have, or there's incredible leaders out there, whether it's Dabo Sweeney or Fleck up in Minnesota, there's a couple of football coaches, but they talk about the mission and the core values, and those just permeating everything that we do. And It should be the way that we hire. It should be the way that we evaluate people, those core values. And so we are going to continue to invest in that piece because I think it's so powerful. I think it's so powerful that people know where we're going and how we behave or how we expect ourselves to behave and how our students should behave as well.
It's great. And I love how they both are simple, yet mean a lot. When we work with different companies, and we did not help you put yours together, but we will say with vision, it's to be clear and compelling, and values need to be meaningful and memorable, both of which you guys did a great job, which is why everyone's able to recite them, which is why they're just not a fancy plaque on a wall. They actually are lived out day in, day out. They can be a filter for hiring, for firing, for performance reviews, all kinds of great things when they are meaningful and memorable. So very, very good. Marshall, do you have a personal vision statement?
So we have a vision statement for our family, and it's we want to work hard, we want to be kind, and we want to love God. And so we say those three things in our family over and over again, to the point, and I know this is good, is when the boys cut me off and like, Dad, we got it. We got it. Work hard, be kind, love God. Check. Got it. We're tired of hearing it. So to me, that's
well
that's
done.
Yeah. But I really believe, even in Genesis, God calls us to work hard, to be kind, and to love God. And if we do those three things, I think our boys and our family are going to be in great shape.
Oh, man, if we all did those things, the world would be a better place for sure. So, Marshall, thank you very much for what you do and the impact you're having on the community, and for me being able to call you a friend. So thank you for all you do. Thanks for being a guest on this podcast.
Corey, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you working with our leadership team. You did an incredible job, and it's a true honor to be even considered for your podcast. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Marshall, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
You can email me at mhyzdu@moeller.org.
All right. Sounds good. We'll put those in the show notes as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey.
I want to thank you for listening to my podcast, Win at Home First. I am so grateful to hear from listeners like you that this content has been helpful. So now I would love for you to pay it forward. I want to get this message in the hands of more listeners. We need leaders to be winning both at home and at work, especially during this time. So please take a minute to share this episode with somebody you think would find value in it, as well as rate and subscribe. As a thank you, please visit my website at corymcarlson.com to download a free resource that people are finding value in. Thank you very much.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.